started here. Okay. Great. Well, audio is good. And everybody can see the slide right now, the first slide.
Looks great to me. So.
Okay. Well, let's get going then. So thanks so much, everybody, for joining us today to talk a little bit about InvenTeams. If you have questions throughout, use the group chat. Mark and I will do our best to monitor it throughout. Interrupt us, ask questions, etc. We can be pretty casual and informal. It's not going to be a huge group tonight, which works out in your favor because we can, talk and get to know each other and answer your specific questions. I ask that you keep your microphone muted if possible. If you want to share your video, you're welcome to, but you certainly don't have to. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So today, we want to do a quick introduction of ourselves, talk a little bit about the InvenTeams initiative. Who are we? What do we do? How do you apply? And then go through what I think are some really helpful tips and tricks for those of you who are getting started and looking at applying this year. What are some things you can be thinking about and working on to really put together a strong application and put your best foot forward in the coming weeks? So that's really our agenda today. I hope to be done within an hour. I think we can accomplish that pretty easily. So with that, I'll get started and introduce Mark Westlake. Thanks for joining us, Mark.
Hi.
You just got a new job this year.
I did. I've been teaching physics for 28 years at St. Thomas Academy, and we just opened a brand new innovation center. And now my new job is to run this innovation center, which is got all of the latest and greatest equipment. It's a toy shop for me, so it's pretty amazing. And I teach at a unique school. We're an all-boys military school in St. Paul, Minnesota. So it's kind of a funny deal. I did do an InvenTeam project with students in 2008. The motorcycle that we built is somewhere right behind us.
There it is.
Yeah, there. That motorcycle was electric. It was built to be a safer option. It goes about 60 miles an hour and travels about 60 miles on a charge. It's got some compression zones in it in the event of a crash. I've been working with the Lemelson-MIT program now since then. I just keep coming back, and they don't shoo me away. And so I serve as a master teacher for the program and help people along the way as they teach their students and try to develop their own invention programs at their schools. So that's
great. And more recently, some of your projects have turned you into a world traveler, right?
Yeah, for a high school teacher, it's really not a bad gig. I had some students that built an electric car that recently won the Shell Drivers World Championship in London, England. And the best part of that was that the winning team got a week-long trip to the Ferrari factory in Maranello, Italy. And I rode their coattails all the way.
That's great. That's great. Well, we're happy to have Mark with us as part of our program, and certainly he's got some really great insights to share with you later tonight. And then there's me. So I've been with the Lemelson-MIT program now for 3 years. My job, I work day-to-day with the InvenTeams project, and it's really a lot of everything, which is a lot of fun. Whatever teams need to help them go from idea, the seed of an idea, to working prototype of an invention that they bring with them to MIT each June. Before that, I taught science in Chicago and used to work at the Science Museum there, which was a ton of fun. I'd love to hear a little bit about who you are. So in the group chat, if you don't mind, just typing your name, where you're from, and what your school or organization is, just so we get a sense of who's joining us today.
I always love this part in case somebody had gone up to get coffee. We're asking for stuff. So
yeah. It's always fun to see people come in from all over. Hey, there we go.
What time is it in Hawaii right now, Stephanie?
That's great. That's great. We have an InvenTeam in Hawaii this year, and we've had a couple of late nights for me, so I could get in touch with them. But that's all part of the job. It's okay. Great, Don. Good to have you. Hey, Lacrosse.
Yeah,
There we go. Just down the road from you.
that's right.
I am Steve. I am a Badger, born and bred. It's always good to have more Wisconsin folks. Oh. 75 degrees. I'm looking out my window now. I live across from a bank that's got the temperature. It's 33 here in Boston. I can't complain about 33.
I think it's 5 here. So it's chilly.
There we go. Chino Hills, welcome. Excellent. That sounds like a lot of fun. Engineering and Computer Science Academy. So we're from all over. That's great. So thanks so much for taking some of your afternoon or evening to join us today. Again, please interrupt, use the group chat. If you have questions or anything comes up, type away and Mark and I will address it as we go.
Yeah.
So just a little bit of background, the Lemelson-MIT program, we've been around since 1994. We were founded by Jerome Lemelson and his wife, Dory. Jerome Lemelson was a prolific inventor, 600 plus patents to his name. And he really, when he thought about his legacy, Jerome, we call him Jerry, he wanted to inspire the next generation of inventors. He always talked about how, how with the Super Bowl, we can name all the athletes. Well, why can't we name inventors? They should be celebrated and cheered on. So we've been around since 1994. We're a small program within the School of Engineering. So we're sponsored by the Lemelson Foundation, but we operate out of MIT's School of Engineering based here in Cambridge, Mass. Again, we're all about pursuing young people, encouraging young people to pursue creative lives through invention. We'll talk a little bit about what alum of our program do. Yes, some go on to be inventors and do great things and engineers, but they all live inventive lives and they're all leaders, and we're really proud of that too. Our program has many pieces, as you can see. We've got the Lemelson-MIT prize. That's a $500,000 prize for a mid-career inventor. We have student prizes for undergraduate and graduate students, but our focus here, InvenTeams and JV InvenTeams, those are our K-12 initiatives, and InvenTeams, which we're talking about today, is our high school initiative. When we think about invention, there's a lot of different words and things happening, acronyms that have come and gone: STEM, STEAM, Project Lead the Way, project-based learning, problem-based learning, youth action research, maker spaces, maker ed. It's all out there. Sort of the simplest way that we think about invention is find a problem, and we talk about technological invention. So find a problem and develop a technological solution to solve that problem. So we've got this simple cycle here, but the great thing I think about invention education is that you can enter from lots of different places. Mark talked about building cars. His team was skilled at building cars, and that's how they entered the invention cycle. Throughout the course of the years, they invented the green car over his right shoulder there. My guess is that they learned a lot of other things, that maybe some they anticipated, technical skills, maybe some they didn't anticipate.
I think we learned a lot of things that didn't work. We'll talk about this later, but one of the things that we encourage our students to do is to fail quickly.
Yeah. You have to. I tell InvenTeams the hardest prototype to build is the first prototype. Students in particular, they can research and think and sketch themselves into a pit. But then the moment you try something, it worked or it didn't. And you're going to learn something either way. So the sooner that you build and test, the sooner you can learn, the sooner you can fail fast and move forward. So this is kind of how we conceptualize what it means to invent. The particular grant, the InvenTeam grant, is up to $10,000 for a team of high school students and teachers and mentors. You're all part of this, to create technological solutions to real-world problems. I think this is something that's really unique about InvenTeams, is that students pick the problem that they want to solve. Looking at the picture here, the boy here on the left working on his robot, that's a team from Houston, Texas. The roads there are terrible, full of potholes. Their teacher told them that in one summer he spent over $1,000 on blown tires because of potholes on Houston roads. So they wanted to do something about it. This was a local problem. They really understood it. They could get out and go for a walk just outside the school and see all the concrete and all the potholes. And as a result, they invented a system to autonomously fill up the potholes, and a way to augment the material so that it was less brittle. It wouldn't crack and break as often. So all of the hot weather in Houston, it could do a lot better with. Another problem right in the middle, that mess of wires with 2 shop vacs on top, that's a vacuum to clean up the New York City subway system. These are students who went to school in Manhattan, and they took the subway every day, and they were sick and tired of being late. And they were late because there were fires in the subway. Rubbish gets on the 3rd rail, smoke and fire fills it up. They have to stop the trains until they can clear it up. New York City subways does not have a good system in place to pick up that trash. So they invented this little vacuum. It was pretty neat, that could go along and suck up the trash as it went. When it gets to the end of the line, you dump out the bin and you start fresh. So again, that's a problem that they understood very well. And as a result, they were able to develop a working prototype that could actually solve that problem and actually make a difference. They got some good interest from the transit authority there in New York, and a group of students continue to work on it for multiple years. So lots of good things, but it all starts with finding that real world problem, something that students are really passionate about solving, and then the technology comes from there.
And I think one of the things that we want to mention is that we're looking for physical prototypes. So not software, for example, or anything that would be tested on humans, for example. But we're looking for something that students can produce in the end, they can hold in their hands, that they can display at Eureka Fest.
Yeah, that's a great point, Mark. Some inventions will involve an app, but an app is, just like the remote control for the physical contrivance. It's something that they build and make with their hands or hand tools, that kind of thing. Where are InvenTeams? As you can see, all over the United States. We've been around now we're in our 14th year. We have this year our first InvenTeam in Hawaii. We've had one in Alaska, but not quite all of the 50 states just yet. We've had almost 230 InvenTeams, thousands of students. So we've been doing this for a while. We grant 15 teams each year, and you can always go to our website and you can look up all the old past teams to see if there are any in your area, in your community. You can learn about the projects that they did and just see the variety of scope of the kinds of problems that students choose to work on and ultimately the solutions they develop. Just, as I mentioned earlier, we survey our InvenTeam alumni. We know that 2/3 of them go on to either study or work in STEM fields. 30% of them identify as inventors. That's a huge number. Very, very few people in the United States consider themselves inventors. This 30% number is higher than MIT undergraduate students, for example, so we're pretty proud of that. But mostly we know that our InvenTeam alumni are leaders. They know that they can take on a big problem and they can see it through to conclusion, that they can work on a multidisciplinary team, that when the teamwork gets hard, our students don't give up. They find a way to persevere and make it work. And like Mark said, they don't get set back by failure. They embrace it and they learn from it.
Tony, I like to think about myself as an inventor, but my wife has assured me that what I do in the garage is called tinkering. She says that inventors actually make money. So
one day, Mark. One day.
One day.
Yeah, yeah. So we're really proud of our InvenTeam. I don't know, can you think of any students that were on your team and what they're up to now, I guess 10 years later?
Oh, let me look. Oh, yeah. In fact, one of our students now just got a patent for a snowboard, and he runs a snowboard company out of his garage. It's something that is unique because it has variable flex in it. He worked in the automotive industry after graduating from the University of Wisconsin, and then quit the automobile industry when he had this great idea, and now he's got a team of 3 people, and I think they're building these snowboards, and they're being tested all over the world. So there's a great example of somebody who took what he had learned about the invention cycle, and especially about the failure part of it and how to continue on past that. And now he's on the verge of a very, very successful company.
Well, that's really cool. Yeah, so we hope, students, he clearly found his passion and, had the skills, not only the technical skills, but the, inventive mindset to see his good idea through to something real. That's really neat. Some of these things we've started to talk about already. There's nothing more real than an invention project. Again, I keep looking over your shoulder there, Mark. That's a real car. If you could zoom in, you'd see that it has a Minnesota license plate in the back.
I'll take it and show you.
It's as road ready as it gets, and you started from, an idea, right?
Yeah, and what we did was you push students to try new things. Where I teach, I have a lot of students that are very clever and very bright, but have never picked up a tool in their entire life. And so some of the skills that they had to learn was how to get their hands dirty. I think that occasionally you run into students that are on the other side that have never really spent any time doing the research side of it. So InvenTeams is perfect for both groups. The group that really needs to learn how to work with their hands, and the group that needs to learn that you need to stand on the shoulders of giants and go into the library and actually look up some things along the way.
Yeah, that's perfect. We really pride ourselves in working with teachers. We see you as teachers as key levers of change in your students' lives, in your schools and communities. So it's really important for us to support you however we can. So myself, I work very closely with all of the InvenTeam teachers. In addition to Mark, we have 5 other master teachers around the country who work very closely with the InvenTeams throughout the summer as they're developing applications, as well as the teams that ultimately receive the grant work with them throughout their own invention process. So we're happy to support teachers however we can. Myself, my colleague, our invention education officer, Lee Esterbrooks, we were both teachers, and we really feel like it's our responsibility to support and uplift the good work that you're doing with your students already. And then we also try and support on a broader level. We do a lot of effort to shine a good light on your school and your students and your work and your program through community engagement efforts and media and communications and press releases and those kinds of things to really let the world know what you and your students are up to, and using this as an opportunity, sort of as a seed to grow something bigger. It's hard to start and just say, oh, here's an innovation center, I'm going to build one for you. You have to build that up over time. And we hope that through InvenTeams, we can help make some of those connections with you to help you grow those programs. So in addition to the specific project, we also work with InvenTeams and InvenTeam communities to build out their own local network of support to make their dreams reality, whatever those dreams happen to be.
And becoming an event team is a lot like sitting on the Supreme Court. Once you are an event team, you are always an event team. And there's a certain amount of help that comes along with that. I mean, when you go out to talk to potential sponsors, having the Lemelson-MIT name connected with your program carries some real weight, and it will help you get indoors. It'll help you make connections with the community and with businesses in your community.
I always joke that InvenTeams, the grantees, they get an MIT.edu email address.
Yeah.
And for some, that is the most valuable thing. And I hate to say it, but it's true. When you can send an email from MIT.edu, sometimes it gets more opens than other places.
Yeah, I can't even tell you how many times, Tony, I've sent something from my school email address to a company and got no response at all. But as soon as I send it from westlake@mit.edu, I get an email right away. How can we help you, professors?
Oh, isn't that the truth? That's great. Cool. Okay. Before I start talking about the application process, kind of the nuts and bolts, are there any questions? If you have questions, feel free to type them in the chat. And again, we're a small group, so happy to take whatever you have. Okay. Well, if they come up, feel free to ask. That's fine. I'm going to keep moving on here and talk a little bit about the application process. So InvenTeams has this two-stage application process. The first stage, that's what we're talking about today, is the initial application. And that's really led by you, the teacher. At this stage, what we're looking for, just to say it very clearly, is evidence of a teacher who can lead a year-long open-ended invention project in their school or organization. That's what we're trying to identify. That can come from a lot of different places. Maybe you're like Mark and you've built experimental vehicles before. Maybe you've been a coach on the hockey team, and that's really valuable experience. Being an InvenTeam coach isn't like lecturing about physics. Being an InvenTeam coach is like being a coach and facilitating the process. So that kind of experience is really valuable. Maybe you've done a robotics competition with your students. Maybe you've done some really neat projects already in your classroom. Maybe you're a second career teacher and you have some workplace experience where you've managed a grant or led technical teams or been part of technical teams before. There are lots of different ways that you can demonstrate this. Everybody has different strengths and backgrounds to draw upon, but what you really want to put forward in this initial application is evidence that you can lead your group of students through a year-long open-ended invention project. From this initial stage, we will select 35 teachers, and those 35 will be our Excite Award recipients. That's already an award. Part of that award is a trip to MIT to visit us in June to attend an event that we host called Eureka Fest. Eureka Fest is a ton of fun. It's our celebration of the inventive spirit. That's where the invent teams are showcasing their final working prototype. So all 15 invent teams at the end of their year are there. They're showcasing, they're presenting, there's some celebratory events. And we also do some separate sessions just for the Excite Award recipients and some training and professional development for them with our master teachers, with some MIT professors, with some of the resources we have on hand to guide you through this process a little more. Go ahead.
think that maybe, and I know you kind of said this, but MIT covers all your expenses to go out for that Excite Award, those Excite Award days. So, I mean, the accommodations aren't fancy. You're going to live on the college campus, but I'll tell you, just being on MIT's campus is pretty powerful. I know it was for me the first time that I walked onto that campus.
And, you know, all the other teachers, all the other Excite Award recipients, the master teachers, the InvenTeam teachers who are at the end of their year, so this year's groups, you know, people always think I'm kind of weird for liking staying in the dorms, but I like it. I have fun. We hang out, and you know, it's a really great and inspiring group to be with. So nothing wrong with a little bit of dorm life, because we have a lot of fun. The final application then, so you get home from MIT, you're inspired, you have an understanding of the expectations, and then you hand things over to your students. And that's when they'll write a full grant proposal, just like, you know, you or I would turn in, where you have your budget, your background research, your technological proposal, you know, your community of support, all of the things that would go into a full grant proposal, and you turn in that stack of documents, and that's due early September. And from there, we will choose 15 teams to ultimately receive the grant. We also know that just that grant writing process is incredibly valuable for a group of students and teacher to go through. You learn a ton just by going from sort of a hunch, a seed of an idea, to like a full proposal. You know, here's what we really think we can accomplish. You learn a ton going through that process, and even teams that don't receive the grant in a given year can take that packet and shop it around locally and find other ways and other resources to see their good idea through to completion. So that's kind of the process, and again, we're really focused right now on that initial application. We talked a lot about Eureka Fest already, but specifically, you know, the training pieces for Excite Award recipients, invention education. What does it mean to invent? What does it mean to invent with young people? How do you manage a grant? Maybe some of you have experience, maybe some of you have no experience. That's okay. How do you manage a large multidisciplinary project? This isn't something that, you know, a traditional teacher education program like I went through, you know, ever covered. You know, we kind of learn it on the fly. So we can help you with some tools and strategies. And of course, we're all there, the master teachers are there, and provide some individualized support and feedback. So you've got some resources to take home with you as you and your students write that full application. And then this year, because people ask the dates, it's arrival on a Tuesday, June 19th, and depart Saturday morning, June 23rd. Those are the dates for Eureka Fest this year. Okay. Keys to success. So here's where I love to just let Mark go for it. You've got a lot of good things to say here. So I'm going to let you tell us how to be successful applying for InvenTeams.
Well, I'll tell you, the first thing you need to do is you do need to start right away. And one of the things that will make your summer and then ultimately the application in the fall a lot easier is if you can assemble a team of students now with a little bit of foresight, knowing that they're going to work together with you over the summer to get that final application written. When it's due in September, I mean, you have a lot of stuff going on at the beginning of the year. I think most schools start at the end of August or the very, very beginning of September. And so there's not much in-class time or in-school time to get the pieces that you need in order to get that final application done. When we talk about the student-centric project, one of the things that we've seen with some programs that have had struggles, maybe a little bit less success, is when the project that they've chosen is the teacher's project. You need to get students involved with choosing an invention, coming up and identifying a problem, and then working through that. Is if you can keep the students engaged, all right, because it's their idea, a lot of your project management problems will go away because they want to be there. They want to work on this invention along the way. Encouraging your students to be creative is not as easy as you think. There are lots of ways to get them to think creatively, and asking them to sit down and just brainstorm is sometimes not one of them. Sometimes they need to do things together. They need to walk through a hardware store. They need to go to a museum. Those kind of things that will cause them to think about things a little bit different. And then fail fast. I can't even tell you how much important that is to get going right away and to figure out what doesn't work. I always tell my students, I say, ready, fire, aim, where we're just going to build something right away, and then we'll go back and figure out how to make it actually work. And so we're pros at throwing things in the dumpster. But each time we take something ceremoniously outside to get rid of it, and they have learned something along the way. And so get them working on something as soon as you can. I mean, even before you turn in your Excite Award application, it's not a bad idea to get them with foam core and hot glue and stuff you can dig out of the garbage. Get them trying to prototype something. Start to think about the businesses that can help you. I know that a lot of people have made connections with local universities. If there's one in your area, often their engineering department is more than willing to help you, and not financially as much as with expertise. There's going to be somebody there that knows the answer to your problems. I'll tell you, I am never the smartest guy in the room. And one of the things that I've learned over my time as an invention education teacher is you have to trust your students to do it right and to jump in. If I think that I have to know how to do everything, nothing would ever get built in our shop because I'm a project manager. I'm not a great thinker. I'm not a great physicist. I'm not a great engineer, but I'm good at getting students to be those kind of things. And then finally, be honest with the amount of time you can commit. This is a huge time commitment. I mean, you're working a lot with students. And, I think for us, we pretty much worked 5 or 6 days a week on whatever project we're on. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody has to work that amount, but it did take, for us to build our project, a significant amount of time. And every year that we make something, it surprises me how much time it takes. And then as you get into spring, obviously the wheel spins up a little bit. Things go faster and faster and faster when you start to have these pressing deadlines, especially the deadline of Eureka Fest right around the corner, where you have to ship your project or you have to get it ready for a presentation at MIT. And that's a little scary for students and for teachers. So get going right away, no matter what you plan to do.
And Mark, you've also have a partner now on the
Yes.
experimental vehicle team, and I think that's a huge asset. You don't have to go this alone.
Yeah, it's very hard to do things by yourself. If you find somebody to work with you, and you really should, it helps your application, no doubt about it. Do what I did and find somebody who's good at all the things that you're bad at. And it turns out that the list of things that I'm bad at is really long. But my helper, my assistant, I shouldn't call her my assistant, my co-moderator, is very, very good at public relations. She's really good at developing relationships with our mentors, at reaching out to our community. She likes people. So those kind of things that are a struggle for me sometimes. So
good. Yeah, that's all right on. That's excellent advice. I always like this, how to be unsuccessful.
Yeah. Make sure you choose something that you want to work on and that nobody else in the whole world cares about. I can guarantee that will not be a successful project if you make it that. The students have to be engaged. One of the things we tell teams is try to find a face a end recipient of this, a user of your product, so that the students can connect with that person. A good example was a team that had a paraplegic farmer at their school. And one of the problems with this teen farmer is that he couldn't get up into the tractor. It's very hard for him to do that. So their invention was to come up with this lift that would basically autonomously lift him up into the cab of his tractor. And every day that they worked on that, and he was there with them, at least they were putting a face on it, and they saw the benefit of their daily work. And their project in the end was really, really good because they had a reason to build it. If the reason to build it is because you want to build it, they're not going to be as engaged at that point. So keep doing everything that you're doing right now. Be involved in 1,000 different things, and your InvenTeam project will not be successful. This has to be the focus of your school year. I think we've seen lots of, especially FIRST robotics teams, when it gets to their crunch time, it just happens to be the same time that InvenTeams is starting to get into that crunch time. And there's just too much crunch there for one person to try to take care of all of that. One of the biggest mistakes I made in our very, very first year, 20 years ago, was we only had seniors on this team. And they were fantastic until they went and graduated. And then I realized that I had to reteach everything. So get sophomores on the team, get freshmen on the team, get juniors on the team. Because one of the things that we want is we want your program to continue. We want it to have some longevity. We want you to build a culture of invention at your school. So that only happens if after you get back from MIT, if there's a group of students that are already starting to say, this is the kind of thing I want to change, or this is what we want to work on next year. My wife knows that I do this, and she's very supportive of it. I'm not sure I could keep it a secret, so I'm sure she would think that I'm seeing another woman because the project feels like that sometimes. But make sure that the people around you, your family, understands that this is going to be a significant amount of time. My children love coming to our work time. They bring their scooters, they ride them in the halls. I don't know if you can do that, but it's kind of nice because then my wife has a Saturday alone, and then my kids are all with me. So, and don't try to do this alone. We talked about that already. And one of the things that we always kind of chuckle about as we read through the applications is you can tell who wants to do this because they're trying to pad their resume with that MIT part of it. It's a nice perk, no doubt about it. And I love telling people that we had a Lemelson-MIT InvenTeam project, but that can't be the reason that you're doing it. So you will fail for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Some of the rewards. You told us one story about the snowboard company. Yep. So, the Super Bowl was just in Minnesota. What about, can you tell one of the stories about the Vikings in your InvenTeam?
Well, one of the things that we don't have a relationship with the Minnesota Vikings yet, but the Minnesota Vikings brand new practice facility is about a half a mile from our school. And they're starting to think about adding a makerspace in their new practice facility. And I'm not sure what the purpose of that is. They've contacted us to see if there's something that we can do to help them along the way. I'll tell you, for life-changing experiences, some of the students that worked on that team are still, they're beyond my students now. They're friends of mine. This is only 10 years ago. Bob Gurton, who did almost all of the hard, dirty work on that motorcycle, was at my house on Sunday for the Super Bowl party. So it's amazing what the misery of hard work and invention will do for developing relationships. So, and at the bottom, I can't even tell you what I've learned along the way. way about composites, about mechanical systems, about electronics that I never ever thought that I would need to know or even want to know. But because I asked my students to become experts in those fields, I have serendipitously become an expert in those fields with them.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's great. That's excellent. Okay. All right, so now to the fun stuff. So we've talked in general. I always think it's fun to talk about some specific examples of what InvenTeams have done. You know, one of the most common questions we'll be talking about it, and somebody asks me, "Hey, is this a robotics program?" Well, no, not really. Then they'll see, you know, I'll talk about Mark's car. Oh, so it's like an electric vehicle competition? No, not really.
Right.
It really is. Students find a problem they're passionate about, and whatever technology you need to solve that problem, that's what it is. So this is a team from 2015. Mark, I know you went to go visit them. You want to talk a little bit about what we're seeing here?
Yeah, Davenport West High School took on a horrible problem. You know, every year you hear stories of children being forgotten in cars and hot summer days and dying. This is horrible. So this group from Davenport West identified that as the problem that they would like to affect. And so they had built this sensor that basically sat in the car seat of the car and monitored the temperature in the car and whether somebody was still in the seat. And the parent wore a bracelet or on I think it also sent a message to their phone that if the car doors were closed and they were away from the car seat, it had a sensor, a proximity sensor, that it would send them a signal and say, wait a second, there's still somebody in that car. And at first when they took on this project, they added lots and lots of bells and whistles to it. It was like overwhelming for them. But when they eventually distilled it down to the simple problems that they wanted to solve, they ended up building really kind of a remarkable project, and they got lots of media attention, and it worked. It was really neat.
Yeah, so this is a good example of, you know, you can see the broad array of technical skills. So you can see they had to develop an Android app. They have some serious electronics going on and sensor work, but then they also have some 3D design and materials and molding work. You know, they all, this isn't even the final version here. You know, they brought final versions of this bracelet to MIT where multiple students were able to wear them and show it off. They did a really nice job seeing this through from starting with that problem and then coming up with that solution. This is a team, Shelly. This is she's one of our master teachers down in Arizona. She did a great job. Has a very mechanical project here. We don't have the full shot of it. Kind of in the bottom right there, you can see it. They built a physical therapy chair. The problem that they wanted to solve was that students at their school weren't getting the physical therapy services that they needed. So they wanted to do something about it. Again, it was started with that passion. They started with something they cared about. It was their classmates getting the services they need. And they developed a remarkable invention. The invention took them to the White House Science Fair, and down in the bottom right there is when they were granted their US patent for their device, which is really cool. So the students and the teacher now, you know, they can call themselves inventors. They have a US patent to their name, and just a remarkable job that they did. That was 2010. Do you want to talk? This is a fun one. Do you want to talk about this one?
This is one of my favorite inventions. This is the Troy High School invention. What they had noticed is that even now, in the 2000s, people, in order to harvest coconuts, had to climb up the tree and hand pick the coconuts off. And this is very dangerous. And there's lots of people that get hurt harvesting coconuts. And so they developed this device that would clamp around the trunk of a coconut tree, and then it would go up, and using robotic arms, it would pick the coconuts off. And it was so clever, and it worked in such a slick way that everybody who saw it work was like, that's a really good idea. And so they saw a problem in their community in the harvesting of coconuts. And then they said, well, there's got to be a better way to do it. And they built something that worked.
Yeah, yeah. That one's a lot of fun. I like that one a lot. This is another team from just 2 years ago, Williamston High School in Michigan. And what the young woman there is holding is actually an automatic locker opener. There was students at their school with autism who had a hard time using the dial locks that are on all the lockers in the school. So if a high school student can't use their locker, they stand out, they're different, they can't put their coat away. It causes all sorts of problems for them to not be able to be just like the other students. So they wanted to do something about that. So this device they invented, you carry it around in your backpack, you program it once, you put it right on the locker, and it can open up or it just sort of knows the combo and can spin it for you automatically, which is really neat. This is another team that has now received a US patent for this invention. So that's not, a requirement necessarily, but we always love to celebrate it. So we've had 7 InvenTeams that have received a US patent so far, which is always fun. So that's it. So again, just thinking about what should be on your to-do list as you're thinking about what to do. So again, right now it's really about that teacher. So that's you. I know some students signed up. So students, you need to go find a teacher who has these qualities that we've talked about. Start to gauge student interest. You don't necessarily have to have your full roster set in stone by that April 9th deadline, but you should be able to demonstrate, yeah, there are a core group of students at our school who really want to do this. And it's not just me and my pet project. And you should start looking for problems to solve. We ask as part of the online application, to a proposal. Nothing is set in stone. We ask for the seed of an idea, and if you could say, here's 3 problems we're considering that we're looking at right now. Develop them as far as you can, of course, but if you can say, here's the problem, or some teams have done a lot of work already at this stage, and they've really thought through, here's the problem, here's what we think we can build, here's why we think it's going to work. That's okay too, but so long as you at least have the seed of an idea, that's what's really most important. And then that application, go ahead and get started with that. Again, the deadline is April 9th. 2 months, it seems like a long time, but no. Winter break, we have here, February break is coming up, President's Day. Spring break is in the middle of that for a lot of people. A lot of schools will probably be off for spring break the week before it's due. So much is happening right now. The sooner you get on that, the sooner you start talking to students and finding some good problems to solve, the better shape you'll be in. That's kind of it for the program. This is your time, so if you have any questions, feel free to type them into the group chat. If you type them to everybody, let us know. We can answer them and address them.
I will tell you that I have never regretted working on an InvenTeam project ever. It was tremendous for my students. It was great for my school. It was really professionally good for me. So don't be afraid of it, and don't feel like you have to understand and know everything. One of the things that Tony Perry and his group and at the Lemelson office are really, really good at is helping connect you with people that can help you. So I think that's good.
Yeah, that's really important to us. Is to help you with whatever. That's why there are 15 invent teams, because we can get to know each team. What do they need? What are their strengths? What are they working on? And how can we help them build up their network? Um, I bet, Mark, if you were to go back to year one and look at your network compared to here you are in year
Oh,
20,
yes. Yeah.
you pick up little pieces here and there, and it's really all of those other outside resources and support, whether it's people who can technically help you out, whether it's people who financially support you in your students' work, whether it's mentors or administrators who understand what you're doing and understand why the school building needs to be open on a Saturday morning. All of those little things, um, they add up, and we're here to help out however we can so that you can have the most successful program for you and for your students.
And even silly things like, where do I get? We have lots of resources about where to find stuff and how to get it free or cheaper. It turns out there's lots of little tricks that you can use to get people engaged and involved with your project, which is good.
Yeah. That's what, a lot of those little things we're able to help out with. And that's a lot of fun. And then that way, you've got something that lasts well beyond one project, well beyond one school year.
Yeah.
You're really planting the seeds for something really special for you in your profession and your career, something really special for your students, the ones on this team and future students, and for your school and community. Okay. Other questions? Any questions? Going once. Bueller. Okay. Well, I tell you what. I think on the next slide, I have contact information.
Yeah.
So here's my email. Here's Mark's email. Send us an email. Call us. I tell people just send an email. Just call. I'm not kidding. I answer my email. Travels with me for better or worse. I'm happy to help out with whatever you need. If you have a crazy idea, hey, we're thinking about this problem, share it. I can give you some feedback. That's fine. If you want to talk through, how InvenTeams might fit into your day, whether it's something you want to do in the school day or after school or some combination, happy to do that. If you see on the map, I'm there's a team that did something interested, maybe I can help you connect with that teacher. Really, whatever you need, if this is something that you're interested in, I'm here to support you however I can, whatever you need. So I would encourage you, if you haven't already, the application is all online. You can check it out at the link there through Slide Room. And like Mark said, just get started.
Let's jump in, both feet. So
yeah. Okay. Well, with that, I will say I will share out the recording of this. So if you want to share it with others, or if you want to rewatch it, you're happy to do that. We'll send out an email probably tomorrow with that. And thanks for joining us. Really, really happy to have so many people from so many different places. And reach out. Let us know whatever you need. All right. Have a good afternoon or evening.
Yeah.
And good to see you, Mark, and take care, everybody.
So thanks, everybody, for joining us.
Bye-bye.